At 25, Ava and Nina both stared at the same kind of paycheck screen and felt the same kind of lie. There was $500 in each month that looked available on paper and already gone in real life. Ava sent that $500 out of checking on payday anyway. Nina left it there because rent, groceries, gas, and the thousand little frictions of being an adult were real, not theoretical. 30 years later, one of them had a visible future cushion of about $567,000 in this illustrative scenario. The other had spent the same monthly breathing room, the way most people do, on normal life. If both women needed that $500, why does only one still have it? On month one, neither woman looked reckless. That matters. Nina wasn't blowing money on some cartoon version of bad decisions. Her bank app just looked like a normal month. Paycheck in, rent out, grocery charge. Gas station. A dinner she almost skipped but didn't. A subscription she kept because canceling it would save less peace than it cost annoyance. Something for the apartment, something for a birthday. Something because the week was long and convenience won. By the end of the month, the $500 had dissolved into category labels that all sounded legitimate. And honestly, that feels smart when you're living it. Keeping the money in checking feels humane. It feels flexible. It feels like you're not pretending your life is cheaper than it is. Nina could look at her balance and tell herself, I'm not doing anything stupid. I'm just making it through the month without turning every day into a punishment. Ava's month looked tighter immediately. Same paycheck day, same pressure, same age, same normal job, same rented place, same adult bills. But on her screen there was one extra line first. An automatic $500 transfer. It happened before the rest of the month got its hands on the money. Then she lived on what was left. That first split is the whole story in miniature. Nina had a more comfortable month. Ava had a less comfortable month and a transfer record. Early on, Nina looked like the sane one. Her checking account had more room. Ava had chosen a smaller cushion on purpose. If you only judge the first few weeks, Nina's path looks better. She preserved breathing room. Ava bought something she couldn't feel yet. That's why this trap is so effective. The wrong path doesn't feel wrong. It feels merciful. By the end of year one, the difference still didn't look dramatic. Nina had used the money, but nothing on her statement screamed disaster. No one line item announced, this was your future disappearing. It was just a year of ordinary American life doing what ordinary life does, absorbing whatever remains available. Ava, meanwhile, had something small but visible. A habit and an account trail. Not a miracle, not some glamorous before and after moment. Just proof that the money had stopped living in the checking account ecosystem, where every month reopens the argument. That's the hidden mechanism. Who gets first claim on the $500 matters more than good intentions. If the future has to wait and ask permission after the month is over, it usually loses. Not because you're weak, because checking accounts are where every real problem and every small relief purchase shows up. Money left there is money still competing, and normal life is very good at winning that competition. Now the scale starts to change. $500 a month doesn't sound like a life-defining number when it's mixed into a monthly budget. It sounds like a little too much to lock away and a little too little to change everything. But when the camera pulls back from the paycheck app to a calendar, that same amount becomes $6,000 a year. That's the first scoreboard turn. Not just $500, not a few categories, $6,000 a year. And once you see it as a yearly number, Nina's path stops looking like harmless drift. It starts looking like a repeated transfer to the present. Again, not a stupid transfer, just an unprotected one. The money was absorbed by rent, groceries, convenience, and relief spending, while Ava's side was building a separate asset. That yearly view changes what the month means in real life, too, because $6,000 isn't pocket change emotionally. It's the kind of number that makes you realize this wasn't just smoothing out a rough season. This was a system. Nina wasn't losing one big chunk once. She was recreating the same decision over and over. And every month that ended without a separate account meant the score reset to 0. Around year 10, the emotional experience of the two paths starts to get strange. Nina still feels normal. That's important. She doesn't wake up in year 10 and think, I have chosen a disastrous path. Her life still just feels like life. Bills come in, costs rise. Maybe one month is easier, another tighter. She still tells herself what almost everyone tells themselves. When things settle down, then I'll really start. But year 10 has a different texture for Ava. Her transfer no longer feels like pure discipline. It has become an account, a visible thing, a place where past versions of herself are now helping the current one. The decision is no longer only about sacrifice. It is now also about not interrupting something that has momentum. That's another scoreboard beat. Same original input, different reality. For Nina, $500 still has to be defended manually every month. For Ava, the rule already exists, and the account is beginning to justify the discomfort. This is where people misunderstand investing stories. They think the magic is picking some brilliant strategy. Most of the time, the first magic is simply sequence. Money moved first has a chance to survive. Money left behind gets used by the month that happens to be in front of you. At year 20, time starts doing more of the work on Ava's side. And that's where the story gets emotionally unfair in a way that math often does. Nina may have worked just as hard, budgeted just as seriously, and felt just as much pressure. But pressure alone does not compound. Protected money does. Nina still has to create margin from scratch. If she wants to build something later, she's starting with current cash flow, current prices, current stress, current obligations. She still needs effort. She still needs extra room. The future is still a separate project she has to begin. Ava is in a different position. She still has bills. She still has real life, but she also has a piece of her financial life that is no longer entirely dependent on this month going well. That changes how a person feels at the kitchen table. The point isn't that all stress disappears. It's that not every later life decision has to be solved with fresh labor. Now we get to the number that changes the meaning of the whole story. If you take that same $500 a month and let it continue for 30 years, that is $6,000 a year. And over 30 years, that equals $180,000 contributed. That alone is sobering. Even before growth enters the picture, this is not a tiny habit. It is a serious amount of money redirected over a working life, and that should immediately translate into ordinary life. Because $180,000 means this wasn't some cute budgeting trick. This was enough money to shape choices later, enough to affect how trapped or untrapped you feel, enough to change what an emergency means, enough to change whether retirement is a conversation or a fantasy. But in this illustrative scenario, using a 6.6% annual return assumption, not a guarantee, that $180,000 doesn't just sit there. It can become about $567,000 over 30 years. That's the scoreboard turn. Same $500, same 30 years. One path leaves you with the memory of having used the money. The other leaves you with an account of about $567,000 in this scenario. And right after that number, the human consequence matters more than the number itself. Because what does about $567,000 actually feel like in ordinary life? It feels like later decisions are less cornered. It feels like work becomes more negotiable. It feels like an emergency is still bad but not instantly identity-threatening. It feels like there is finally something on your side of the table besides this month's income. Then the meaning sharpens again. Out of that illustrative ending value, roughly $387,000 is growth, not direct contributions. That's the number Nina never sees while she's living her version month to month. She doesn't only spend the $500, she also gives up the years that could have multiplied it. The hidden cost of waiting isn't just missed deposits. It's lost growth time. Lost years are expensive in a way that feels invisible when your budget is only organized around surviving the next few weeks. And the life consequence of that is brutal in a quiet way. Because regret here doesn't sound like, I bought something ridiculous. It sounds like, I let ordinary life rent my future 1 month at a time. By age 55, the contrast is finally visible enough that no one needs a lecture. Picture both women at a kitchen table again. not as stereotypes, not winner and loser, just two women who have lived real lives. Ava opens an app and sees a future cushion. Not guaranteed comfort forever, not instant luxury, but something real, something with shape, something that can participate in decisions. She can think in options. Can I ease up? Can I handle a bad year? Can I help without wrecking myself? Can I retire on my own timeline, or at least imagine one? Nina opens her accounts and sees what many people see: current cash flow, current bills, current obligations, and no matching pot built from that old $500. Her life may still look perfectly respectable from the outside. She may have done everything a normal, responsible person does, but later life still has to be funded mostly by later effort. That's the cost. Income can look normal while options shrink. And that's why the opening contrast matters. What looked like sacrifice on day one turned out to be the path with more breathing room later. What looked like flexibility early turned out to be the path where the month kept first rights over everything. Now, a fair objection, because this is where finance stories usually get smug and stupid. For a lot of households, $500 a month is simply not realistic. Some seasons are too tight. Some incomes are too unstable. Some people are choosing between categories that are all already essential. That is real. This story is not permission to shame Nina, and it is not fantasy that everyone can casually find $500. But that objection doesn't change the mechanism. It clarifies it. The point is not that everybody can do this exact number. The point is that whatever amount is repeatable has to leave first, or normal life will spend it for you. If the future gets only what survives the month, the future usually gets nothing. The checking account is not neutral territory. It is where urgency lives. It is where stress goes shopping. So the reset is simple, and it has to be operational, not inspirational. On payday, let the future get paid first, not last. Set one automatic transfer for the largest repeatable amount you can actually keep doing. Treat your calendar as a stress test, not a green light. Just because the money can survive in checking for a few days does not mean it belongs to present you. Ask the harder question first. Is this money assigned to my future, or am I letting this month negotiate it away again? That's the entire difference between Ava and Nina. Not virtue, not intelligence, not who cared more, not who worked harder. They both had the same $500,